All right.
All right. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to our second episode of what we're tentatively calling Let's Talk, where we sit and we talk about topics relating to Japanese film and media. And the cat is already trying to ruin the podcast. Come here, my child.
It's like we just pulled a cat out of nowhere.
So, this is the most professional show on the internet, and we hope that everyone recognizes that. So, today, though, we are joined by the fellow YouTuber, Eiga-Man Ray. So,
how's it going, guys? Hey.
Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, you guys. I love your guys' channel. I really dig just how in depth you guys go with your discussions about just any random film. And that's not random by any means, but you can take any film and you dive really deep into it, and it's like, man, I didn't realize about these films. That's something I enjoyed about your guys' content, and it's something that that when you guys reached out to me about joining you guys for this podcast, I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I'm so down.
Oh my gosh, thank
you
so much.
Yeah.
I really for anybody who hasn't seen Ray's channel, go check it out. Definitely. I really appreciate your I think I said this in our DM conversation too, but you're just how chill all of your reviews are. And
thanks.
Also the opportunity to be hearing about stuff like a year or more before it comes out in America. Yeah. It's really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a double-edged sword, because most of the comments are like, where can I watch this? Where can I download this? And I'm like, I want to say, I've gone to the point where I just say, oh, I checked it out in Shinjuku. Just, I linked out, like, where can I watch this? I linked them to the website where I reserved my ticket, or the website of that theater. It's gone to that point. I mean, I hate to do it, but it's like, I know a lot of the people who watch foreign cinema may or may not purchase them, legally. They might just want to find a quick place to download. I mean, everyone wants to enjoy the movies any way they can.
Right.
But just what is it? That's why I keep trying to explain. Oh, I watch in the theaters, and then I still get, where can I watch it? Well, you can go to this website and reserve a ticket. You just have to come to Shinjuku to check it out.
Yeah.
Come to Japan.
Yeah, just come to Japan.
Yeah.
No subtitles provided.
Yeah. That's I guess that's a drawback, is that I almost don't watch the overly complicated, like, for example, any movies that are that delve into medical science or too deep into sci-fi, because I know there's gonna be a lot of vocabulary that goes over my head.
Oh, that makes sense.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah. Unless I'm already familiar, if I watch the anime, I know all the words are going to jump at me. It's like, okay, I've seen all the episodes of Demon Slayer. I know all the words are going to say in the movie, so that's fine,
Yeah, there's more of a comfortability there.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it's not going to stray too far from what's already been established. So, But yeah.
That makes sense. I hadn't even considered that, but yeah, for somebody learning a new language, when you go into a new fictional story or setting that has a bunch of words that are made up even for native speakers of that language, that's got to add even more.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of our sensei was saying, once we get to a level where we can start reading, that we should start reading books about things that we care about. So if you really like animals per se, which is my example for me, or if you really like sci-fi or something like that, start reading books that are about that, because then you'll start picking up the vocabulary.
So both of you study Japanese?
Yeah, a little.
A little bit.
We did consistently for about 2 years, and recently we've been kind of taking a break. 2020 was a thing.
Yeah, 2020 happened, and
yeah.
But we're probably gonna get back into it relatively soon.
We're probably. One of our friends asked us. He actually lives in Tokyo. And he was like, so what level are you? And I was like, I'm somewhere between frustrated and depressed. But I legitimately think we're between like N4 and N3.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Yeah. Like we could pass the N4, but not the N3 yet. But we'd probably do okay on N3.
Oh, don't mind the ghost.
My child.
Yeah, I think we'd be on. I could not pass the N3.
No, I definitely could not pass the N3.
I might be able to squeeze by on the N4.
Yeah.
I think I could manage.
I think if we studied for a few weeks beforehand, we could do the N4.
Yeah.
Like no problem.
Yeah, I think like once you, like if you ever decide to take it, once you have something, like it just feels great. It's like I felt like you get a stepping stone, you know. You get a stepping, at least that's how I felt in the very beginning. So
have you taken the N tests?
Yeah, I'm at N2 right now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But like the difference between N2 and N1, it's like what's the best way to put it? Like it's like comparing the number of vocabulary and kanji you have to learn. It's like playing a Final Fantasy game, and N2 is like your mid-level boss, and then N1 is like the final boss. It's like, you know, how you have like that kind of like midway point. Like this is the way it feels. Like, all right, I got my mid-level spells. I can take down the mid-boss, but then you try bringing that same arsenal to the final boss. It's like, well, yeah, I got a bit of leveling up still to go. So
yeah,
that's where
that makes sense.
Yeah, I've always felt like the N tests feel exponential.
Mm-hmm.
So like the difference between almost like the difference between N4 and N3 is the same way that you're describing is the difference between N2 and N1. That
it almost doubles.
It's like doubles in difficulty.
It does. Yeah, it really does.
Am I making this up, or didn't they add an N6 and an N0 last year?
It's still I don't, not to my knowledge, because when I took it, it's still N5.
Okay.
Like N5 was the lowest, and then N1 is still the highest. But
okay.
I think before though, I think N5 was the newest one that was added a few years ago. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to say.
Okay.
Okay.
But then they added N5, and then they kind of like redistributed a lot of the suggested vocabulary and kanji in the middle. But they still kept N1 the same because it's there. They don't need to change it. So.
Right.
Yeah. Well, isn't it that like the difference between N2 and N1 is like 1,000 kanji?
Just about, yeah, because you need about 2,000 kanji for N2, I think, and then about I don't know the exact count, but I know it's definitely more than 3,000.
That's plus, crazy.
On top of that, you need to learn vocabulary that you'll only find in like business documents, classical literature, maybe, not in normal conversation. I guess it's the equivalent of learning like classical English, like maybe, you know, more or less Shakespearean English, just for example. You know, learning those old forms that you're never going to use in regular conversation.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, I guess it goes the same for some of our higher level English tests. I wouldn't know. I haven't taken any of that, but
no, neither have I.
Oh no, I'm sure they'd be really difficult.
Even for native speakers.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure the higher level English tests are probably.
Well, because there's like, I mean, this is something that we came across while learning Japanese, and I mean, I think this relates to what we're talking about today, like with translation and things like that. That it was talking about how like having a language exchange.
Yes.
And how having native speakers can sometimes be bad for language exchange. And the reason for that is like, as an English speaker, when I hear the sentence, the red big dog, I know it's wrong. I know it should be the big red dog. But I don't know why. I couldn't tell somebody learning the language why you have to put the big red dog as opposed to the red big dog. But that the actual reason for that is because adjectives have like this, it's like 15, I think, 15 different categories of adjective, and they like come in
There's like a hierarchy.
There's a hierarchy
of the order, but
in English.
We don't learn that.
You don't learn that.
You learn it like implicitly.
Yeah. It's not something
you can
that
actually,
you're told.
There's actually, if you look that up on Google, I showed a few like second language learner friends of mine. It's like what did I look up? Like adjective, order, English word. Like it's like a whole, like it had this example of like, all these adjectives leading up to a noun, and then it broke down. Okay, it's like just where color is, where size is, where distance is in relation to you, where the relationship of it is to you personally, stuff like that. Like all those different types of relationships. There's a hierarchy that we never learn on paper, but we learn as we use the language growing up.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's I encountered a lot of the same kinds of not hurdles, but situations when learning Japanese. I'll ask friends. I'll ask my wife. My wife's Japanese. I was like, what's the difference between this word and this word? She's like, it's the same, right? I'm like, I guess, but like, can I say it in this situation? No, you can't. It's like, okay, because but I can use this other similar word in this situation. Yes, but can I do it in this? No. Why? I don't know. You just can't. It's like
yeah. Go ahead.
No. It's just like it's just funny when like in English we have so many more of those too, and like they're just like no matter what language, they're just all sorts of different depths that native speakers just can't explain to it, but we know how to use it. We just can't explain it.
Right.
Yes, exactly. And we came across that with our sensei. Like the Japanese, like how do I say, like the nasally ga?
Oh yeah.
The like ga. Like,
where they almost like, put an n in front of it.
Ga. Yeah, I can't say it correctly, obviously, but like it's almost from the nose a little bit more in the top of the mouth than ga, like more frontwards. I think when you say it. And they would be like, I don't hear a difference.
Yeah. We were like, why do some people have that as a part of their accent? She was like, I can't tell a difference between ga and ga.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But on the topic of dialects again, like where when I first came to Japan, I lived in the other side of the country in Nagasaki Prefecture. I came to Japan as part of the JET program. I was placed in Nagasaki in a very rural part of it. And there was one of the towns north of me, their dialect was that they pronounced a lot of their words like they were Sean Connery. I kid you not. So like, so it was part of the dialect. They didn't explicitly sound like Sean Connery, but the similarities were there. So, and it was part of their dialect. It was just part of the dialect, the way they pronounce things. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And if you go further, like you ever the game Ghosts of Tsushima, right? Yeah, Tsushima is a real place in Nagasaki Prefecture. It's like right smack in the middle between Nagasaki and Busan. So the local dialect there is a mix of Korean and Japanese.
That makes sense.
So like I think part of the island it's a majority of Korean folks, and the other part of the island is a majority Japanese, but their local dialect together is a blend of the two languages. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of cool things like that, like when you if you ever get to travel around Japan, you get to hear the different things getting spoken to you. Yeah, it's just a fun thing to experience.
Yeah, totally.
So when with your translation work, is that something that like you have to be aware of all these different dialects?
No. So like the kind of translation work I do, at this point in time, I translate mostly character dialogue, and mostly character dialogue right now. I think once, because the game I'm working on, it's a new game the company's producing, and they're still fleshing out everything. So like weapons haven't really been made yet, but once those are made, like I'll be part of the team that makes like item descriptions and whatnot, menu, putting my input on what works on a menu layout, for example. But anyway, so it's rather than regional dialects, it's more, how do you say, more colloquialisms that I would work with.
Okay.
Like how, like the difference between trying to translate a character who it's mostly girls I translate, like the game I translate, it's mostly girls, which is the first hurdle I got to say, because I'm a pretty old dude, you know, I'm in my late 30s. Here I am trying to translate a 14-year-old girl who talks like she's high on sugar all the time, you know. So like my project manager was always like, make it cuter, you know, or like
Oh my
put some more, like you got to put more character into it. And I'm like, you know, that's something I'll talk about more. It's like kind of like the struggles I had when I first started as a translator. But the thing, yeah, going back to your question, is it's mostly colloquialisms. Like not only like character girls who refer to themselves as like boku or atashi or atai. You know, you guys having to know all those ways they call themselves, but also like you know, it's, for example, the difference between nai and ne, you know, like those kinds of nuances, like the difference between calling someone anata and omae, you know, or ome, or like ome, you know, going like kisama, you know, those kinds of ways. And also just kind of reading through their words, like what's the word? I know there's an English word for it. There's like just the deeper meaning behind why they say it. It's like, you know, you have to keep it
nuance, sort of.
Yeah, nuance. So like being in Japan, as long as I forget some of the English words. I'm not like
it's fine.
Our other friend who's lived in Tokyo for almost a decade, whenever he comes home, he's always like, what is that word? What is that English word?
And it's like meadow or something like that.
Yeah. So it's totally like, I think that's it seems like that's a common thing.
It's extremely common. Like I've been in Japan for a total, well, this is going to be my 12th year living here. So I've been here for a bit, and like I think my English has started to deteriorate probably my second or third year living in Japan. And the reason is because you teach second language. I started off as a teacher, teaching in junior high schools and elementary schools. And the reason why my language started to change is because you have to explain to these kids the simplest way possible how to use this word, how to use this grammar point, right? And then you end up repeating that for different classes, and then you start to convince yourself that that's the proper way to use it, you know.
It is proper, but it's just like a very minimal way to use it.
It's without the nuance, right?
Yeah.
Without the nuance, yeah. It's the textbook way, right? It's the textbook. Like, for example, like the way they teach how to say, you know, to teach how to say goodbye, they say see you, you know. It's like I've never said see you in my life. I said see ya, you know.
See ya, yeah.
Yeah, see you next time, see you later. But I've never said see you, right? So now I say see you because it's just ingrained in my head, right?
Oh, that's like, crazy. Oh wow, yeah.
Because you repeat it. And on top of that is like, because you're teaching second language learners whose English is nowhere near like, you know, there as far as even having a conversation, you become very forgivable of their mistakes, and like, oh, I know what you meant, so you know, I'm going to continue this conversation as if you said it correctly. You know, so like at least that was the kind of teacher I was. I didn't want to discourage any of my kids because it was a rural town, right? And because I've accepted so many mistakes, like I started to forget what was actually accurate, what was actually the right way to say things, and also what were the more regional way, the natural way I would say things, you know, colloquial ways, you know. It just added on year after year, you know. The more I taught English, really, the more I taught English, it became like that.
That's funny that like as you were teaching English, your English deteriorated because it was more like it went to the textbook side of it, which I think is just more of an argument that to learn a language you should be more communication level, rather than like you get the structure from the textbook, but then you need to jump to having conversations.
That you don't need to just rely on learning through like textbooks and things like that.
It's like you just like, even when learning Japanese, you learn like the basic structure, but then there's so many things you can add on. And also some, like, you know, we were talking about pronunciations earlier. There are going to be different ways that people pronounce that word. Like, and one thing they always teach, one thing they never teach you in Japanese textbooks is that, or one thing I should say, let me reverse that. One of the things they always teach you they always try to convince you is that Japanese has a flat language.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yes.
As soon as we learned about pitch accent, I was just like, y'all been lying to us.
Yeah. I think they try to dress it up to make it more, what's the word? Just more, here we go again. They make
accessible, maybe?
Accessible, yes. Attractive also. Like,
yes.
Just for example, there's a difference between ame and ame. It's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a difference between kumo and kumo. It's like we, as second language learners, we probably wouldn't be able to pick it up unless we heard it in a sentence. But if you speak to a native Japanese, they'll hear it and they'll be like, "Oh, you said it wrong. You must have meant this. You said spider, but you must have been talking about bear." It's like,
yeah,
or not bear, or cloud. Sorry, you said spider, but you must be talking about the clouds up there.
Right.
I know what you mean. It's okay.
I wonder if that's well, one, if it's native speakers not recognizing that that there is a difference, that
legitimately, like truly not being aware.
Yeah, and just legitimately thinking that compared with other languages, it's flat. But then I also partially wonder if, Japanese has this reputation for English speakers especially as being one of the more difficult languages to learn. And so if you have, out of all the Asian languages that are more easily accessible for learning, if you can say, well, Chinese has 5, or Mandarin has 5 pitches, and certain other languages like Vietnamese have pitch too, but Japanese is flat. If that makes it sound more like, oh, well, that's obviously the eeasier one to do.
Like, come to us.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. But what they don't tell you is they got like 3 different scripts that they use, just as, like 4 different scripts technically, because they use Roman letters as often as they do kanji, hiragana, and katakana. And they each have their own nuances. So like you might see all 4 scripts in the same sentence, and and there's a reason why all 4 would be in the same sentence. Like and even like one thing they also won't. I don't know if they'll tell you unless you're taking a business Japanese class. Like if you're communicating with in a Japanese company, if you're communicating with a teammate, with a coworker, there are kind of reasons why you might not like use the kanji for a word and instead use the hiragana. Like there are nuances like this. There are business nuances like for example, if the phrase like yoroshiku onegai itashimasu, right? Like if you put it all in kanji, you're gonna give this impression that you're there strictly for business. You got your suit and tie on. You're like, I'm here. I don't have a personality. But if you leave like yoroshiku and hiragana, you make yourself sound a little more friendlier because the shape of the characters, it's nice and curvy and it's friendly. Stuff like that. There's a lot of those kinds of layers too. So that's another thing that we also encounter when translating too. It's like, why did the writer decide to use? Why did the original author of this dialogue decide to use kanji instead of the hiragana? There's got to be like a meaning behind it, So it's like those kinds of nuances too in the written script that I'm not sure when they start teaching, but you just kind of learn the more you use it.
Yeah.
Well, I know like when we were talking, our sensei was saying that like fruit and animals are usually written in katakana and stuff like that. So I can see that, but I also see like coming back to the a female character using boku as a means of like saying I, like addressing themselves. Like that's, if I said that in our class,
oh my gosh,
I can't even imagine what our sensei would do.
She was very, very proper and very insistent upon.
Like we had to use moss form.
Yes.
Like if I ever used like a short form or just a familiar form, she would correct me.
It's like it's not taberu, it's tabemasu.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So and I guess for listeners who don't speak Japanese, like the universal way to say something like I blah 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 blah. I want to do this. I did that. Whatever would be watashi. I think would probably be the most universal way.
It
Boku,
is, yeah.
Boku is like it's reserved for men. It's a masculine way to say that. But as my understanding is that women in Japan now, like especially younger women, are starting to adopt using boku to be like more masculine or stronger or like more assertive.
I think like with the word boku, like there are different nuances depending on who says it, like and their personal character too. Like my impression of boku is like it makes me, if I said boku, it humbles myself to a superior. Like because like boku, like because boku makes like it makes me what's the word? It implies that I'm trying to, I'm trying to show, of course, show that I'm a male, but I'm also young at heart, kind of feeling, right? Young at heart. So if I say it to superior, I'm humble, I'm lowering myself to them, boku. If I'm a girl, it means I'm trying to be spunky. I'm trying to be like, I'm trying to be boyish, a tomboy, basically, right? I've had a few female students who've called themselves boku, and it's like this is so cute. And I think the reason why is because they had older brothers, and like just copied the language. So
oh, that's cute.
Like, but then in turn they also became kind of spunky and tomboyish too. So it just kind of fit well. But I've also been told that like if you're talking with friends, saying boku makes you sound more feminine. Like if you're talking to another dude friend. This depends on who. This is probably different depending on who you speak to.
Oh, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're with dude friends and you guys are being dudes, guys, you call yourself boku, it makes you sound a little more feminine, a little just weaker, I guess. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I guess that kind of makes sense because when we were learning, I feel like you said boku at one point, and she was like, no, you shouldn't use boku because it's more immature.
Yeah. She was saying that it implies that you're a kid.
That you're a
basically.
Kid, yeah.
It's like I feel like she was kind of equating it with the equivalent of if somebody calls you kun, but it's like you're applying that label to yourself, sort of.
Okay.
So like if somebody calls you kun, then it means that they see you as diminutive, but then if you use boku, then you're saying like you were saying, like I'm like young at heart or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like the word, I think the real masculine word is, which has all nuances to, is ore. Like
that's what I was
you hear that, you hear it in anime all the time, and like if you say ore, you're definitely professing your masculinity. If you say it in a business setting, you're kind of you're professing your arrogance. Like you're like, I'm above you. Like it's very common for superiors to use like ore to you, but you shouldn't say ore back because it kind of makes it seem like you think you're on equal footing with them. Also, like if a girl uses ore, that means they're just, I don't know, they're also kind of tomboyish, but in a very extreme way. Like what else is there? Ore is, if you just want to also, you can also say ore if you want to, like young kids would use ore to sound like a brat, basically. Like, but they want to show that I'm a big tough guy, I'm a big tough guy. So I've had to translate a few female characters who use that word ore. It's like, okay, what is this character trying to profess about themselves by calling themselves ore? And like, I don't want to go too deep into the examples, but she was basically talking like a Yankee, like not like like the Japanese stereotype Yankee, right? Like the thug, the gangster. So what I ended up doing, and my project manager really liked the way I did it, I basically the way I made her words inflect was she was talking like a gangster. It's like I ain't gonna do anything. I ain't gonna do nothing for you. It's like, and keep in mind, this game is like a fantasy RPG setting. To have this kind of character speak like this, it just made this character unique, but also kind of attributed to the way her Japanese script was written. So like, that's in the end, that's what we try to do when we're translating all these characters, is try to find that kind of trait that makes their speech or their isms I guess, everything about them unique.
Mhm.
And for her, it was pretty easy because she spoke like a gangster. She spoke like a thug. So I made her speak like a thug in English too. And it was perfect. It was one of my favorite characters to translate.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is.
Well, I think that's a good like segue into since we haven't like actually like have we introduced you? So,
no, not really.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we
said hi, and you said who you are.
Yeah.
We just got off on talking about Japanese.
No, it's good. It's good. I feel like this has been flowing really naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to introduce yourself and what you do on and off YouTube?
Yeah. So I'm originally from the U.S., from California, actually, Northern California, near San Francisco. I moved to Japan in 2009, as I mentioned earlier, as a jet, meaning I was placed in it was pretty much a random town, random city, random prefecture, and taught English. I stayed in Nagasaki for 5 years before moving to this side. I live about an hour from Tokyo right now.
Okay.
Since coming here, I've taught English for about 2 years since then, and then I moved on to work at an e-commerce company. It's actually an American company that wanted to start their office, their sister office in Japan, to make operations easier. But then I've since quit that, and now I'm an in-house translator for a game company specializing in mobile RPGs. I'm not sure which games are actually available outside of Japan, but I know our games are. I don't know how popular they are within Japan, but they're also doing well, I guess, like in China and stuff like that too. But so I'm an in-house translator by day, and then when it comes to YouTube, I do mainly reviews on Japanese movies or movies that have some kind of connection to Japan.
Yeah.
So I talk about even movies from America, so long as for example, the remake of Godzilla. Godzilla is originally from Japan. So, but let's see how the American take was on it. Even movies that are based off of Japanese video games. In my eyes, it's like free game for my channel. But actually, my channel started off as a 2-person team. I used to be called Asian Filmist, and I had my partner Jason. He would talk about Korean movies. I'd talk about Japanese movies, and eventually we wanted to talk more about, because we love movies from all over Asia, Hong Kong, mainland China, Thailand, Taiwan. We love them all. But eventually, he left to start off his own K-pop channel. If you guys are interested in K-pop, Pop Story is his channel. I became Asian Filmist, and I was like, I'm just going to talk about Japanese movies anyway, so I might as well just rebrand it to make it apparent that I'm going to talk about Japanese movies and that it's just me. So that's why Eiga-Man Ray was born. And yeah, it's mainly the way I watch movies here is I'll either go to the movie theater, which is what you guys are saying. I would watch a movie a year before it came out in the States. I might go to the video rental store. Video rental stores are still a blooming business here. I'll go to the DVD rental store and rent movies that I missed watching in the theaters, or I'll just go on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, all those streaming outlets that we have here. And then what is it? And yeah, that's basically what I'm doing right now. I haven't uploaded content in the past 4 months just because the whole entire summer of 2020 affected everyone. The way it affected me. Well, my daughter was born in 2019, so that got me rethinking about a lot of things about what I want to do, because my job kept me really busy. It was like the whole startup mentality. It's you got to put every single amount of your day into the company, also sometimes outside of your regular work hours. There was no good work-life balance, so I was like, I gotta find something else. And then I was re-examining what I wanted to do, and it was like, I got to make use of my language skills, because as I mentioned earlier, my previous company was an American company. My Japanese skills were used because I was one of the only Japanese-speaking foreigners for the Tokyo office. All the other Japanese team members were busy doing their own other tasks, so my Japanese skills were used for translation, for products and stuff like that, which were then used for marketing purposes. So that was what my language skills were used for my previous job. But I was like, no, I want to do full on translating.
Mm-hmm.
I want to work for a game company.
Yeah.
And so I started, but it was hard because getting into the game company is one of the most competitive industries, especially in 2020.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
especially in 2020. But I signed up with every recruiter I could possibly find. And the way my resume was set up is I didn't have enough hard translating experience as far as what they consider translating experience. So I got turned down left and right. I was able to take a few translating tests, but I think I just got beat out because other people were more experienced. But I eventually got lucky enough to pass my current company's translating test. And yeah, I was able to score a pretty awesome gig with a pretty good company. And now I translate dialogue for girls of all ages, of all different personalities. Right now,
awesome.
at least right now.
That is awesome. Yeah. Also, I just want to say that I'm very excited to hear that the video rental industry is still budding in Japan because it's not here.
Which this actually came up recently in a comment where somebody was asking about the availability of movies that we talk about on the channel that have fan subs but don't have like official releases in English-speaking territories. And one of the things that I mentioned was buying secondhand rentals off of like Yahoo auctions through a proxy service because they are so cheap and there are so many of them. So that makes me that's like a byproduct of the rental industry still existing there, is that we can then acquire those for so cheap after they're out of circulation.
The shipping costs the same amount as you pay for the whole thing.
Yeah, the thing is, Japan is still like, they still love physical media. Like, I mean, streaming services are here. Everyone has a smartphone, but people would still buy CDs. And people like Tower Records is still here, believe it or not. Like, there's a big branch in Shibuya, and obviously like DVD rental places. You can rent DVDs and you can rent manga too. It's pretty amazing because Japan loves physical media. They just love physical media is still a huge thing here. Streaming is there, but then I think the way the culture is, physical media is going to stay for a long time. I don't think Netflix or Hulu is going to overtake anytime in the near future because and like, so it makes it convenient for us because there's a lot, Netflix and Hulu, they operate based on whatever licenses they can get so they can stream the movie, right? These DVD rental stores aren't limited to that, it seems. It's like I've been able to find just random old movies that is nowhere in any streaming service, even illegally uploaded on YouTube. It's like, but the DVD rental store will have it. It's like, no, there it is.
Yeah.
It's like one copy, but here it is, So that's something lovely. That's like a treasure trove for someone like me who loves Japanese movies. It's like, I can't find it anywhere else. I'll just go to Tsutaya and, go over there and there it is, So
that's awesome.
Oh, that is awesome.
You mentioned that you went to Japan initially as a part of the JET program. What got you started in studying Japanese, and I guess by extension, what made you want to go in the first place, to go to Japan?
So I'm not sure if it's with if every college in the U.S. has like the same kind of requirements, but we're all required to learn some kind of foreign language in California, right? At least 2 years, I think. Is it the same for you guys too? At least 2 years of a foreign language to graduate?
We had that. Yeah,
I think ours might have only been 2 semesters though.
2 semesters? Oh, it might have been 2 semesters.
I could be wrong though.
I don't remember because I know when I transferred, I had foreign language credit
from high school, from Spanish,
so I only had to take 1 foreign language class, but it was a level 2, which is usually have like the 2 semesters
for the 100.
You usually have a 100. Oh yeah, I guess you're at a 100 and then a 200. So.
But I knew when I went to college that I specifically wanted to go to college to study Japanese. So
Mhm.
I didn't even look at what the requirements were. I was just like, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I it might be only 2. It might only be 1 year instead of, but it
Okay.
also might depend
Yeah.
on your degree.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Because like so the way I stayed in college for a long time. It took me 7 years to graduate, just because I jumped between 3 majors. But
Oh, I
so like
see.
I was a graphic design major at the time, and I wasn't feeling the industry anymore because just the kind of stuff that goes into stuff beyond designing. I didn't have thick enough skin for it, right? I was
Mhm.
just it was just I didn't have the personality for it. So I was like, what else could I do? Analyzing what kind of my interests were. It's like, well, I like K-pop. You know,
Mhm.
so I want to let me maybe I can learn Korean. My college didn't offer Korean. It's like, all right,
I see.
well, what can I do next? Well, I think I like anime. I was still very early. Like the only at this point in time, the most other than K-pop, the amount of Japanese media I would consume is like some anime here and there,
Mhm.
but mostly Godzilla movies.
Mhm.
But not really much Japanese films per se, but it's definitely either anime and like that's the popular anime, not even like every like how a lot of otaku just like I'm gonna just consume every single anime under the sun, right? I
Mhm.
was just like oh, everyone likes Naruto, I'll check out Naruto. Oh, Dragon Ball, yeah, you know
Mhm.
and I love Godzilla, so I watched all the Godzilla and Gamera movies. That was it. So I'll learn Japanese, and that's how it started. And then so I was like, I realized that it was just a lot of fun, and I just kept with it. Eventually changed my major from graphic design to Asian studies. My college didn't offer a Japanese major, but they
Mhm.
offered a minor, so I graduated with my major was Asian studies focused on Japan with a minor in Japanese.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's how. And then after college, it's like what do I want to do? Well, it's like, well, the JET program is a thing. I've listened to speakers talk about the JET program. Like, yeah, it'll like, you know, come experience a new world when you're teaching in Japan. Like every ex JET I've spoken to, they're like, yeah, it's life changing. It's like going to be some of the best years of your life.
Mhm.
You'll learn not only about you'll not only be working and teaching English, but also you'll going to be learning about yourself because you're going to be there in a foreign country. It's probably going to be the first time you lived on your own, but you'll have a support system, so you won't ever be truly alone. But you'll definitely grow as an individual. And like a lot of my friends and I, we were like, yeah, let's go to Japan. So we applied, we all got in, we all got separated to different parts of the country. But so at first, I didn't know how long I was going to stay. The longest amount of time they allow you to be a jet is 5 years. They won't
Oh.
extend your contract beyond that. It's like I'm not sure if it's changed. No, but yeah, the longest was 5 years.
Mhm.
And after that, if you want to go home, they'll pay for your return ticket. If you want to stay in Japan, they'll just say, all right, good luck trying to find a new job, just like good luck, right? And
Yeah.
so
Okay,
so
bye.
like yeah. So I started at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay in Japan for 2 years just because my mobile phone carrier, like they said my contract had to be a 2-year contract, otherwise if I cancel early I have to pay a termination fee. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm staying at least for 2 years, right?
Mhm.
So but then it turned to 5 years, and it's like I kind of I kind of everything I like is here.
Mhm.
I kind of want to stay. So like then it was also around this time that I met my now wife. So like then I decided to move closer to where she lives on this side of the country, and yeah, and then I'm still here because the things I like are still here, you know. And yeah, I don't see myself moving back home anytime soon.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, it's still a possibility,
Mhm.
but right now I'm really enjoying it here. So
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I respect that.
Yeah. Totally.
I love how you basically stumbled into Japanese and now you've like fallen in love with Japan, and
yeah,
that's
because
amazing.
it was a time in my life where I honestly didn't know what to do because like my family, most of the people in my family are artists.
Mhm.
Maybe not by profession. Like my younger sister is she's a designer by trade.
Mhm.
My dad was what did he do? I know he did a lot of mechanical engineering stuff, but he was an artist at heart. So like I thought design was in my future, like because it was something related to art, but more on the like I can use a computer more, stuff like that. I can use different types of tools, but the industry as a whole, I just wasn't feeling it. So that's what led to me changing. And then ever since studying Japan, I started watching more Japanese entertainment. So whether it be TV dramas, anime, more movies, and making more Japanese friends. And yeah, it just snowballed in the most positive way possible from that point. And it's like, yeah, like I think I made the right choice. So it took me longer. I still owe a lot to my student loans, but like I think
Yeah,
that's generational struggle.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
So it sounds like you've been studying for what, like almost 20 years.
Well, like
12 years.
12 years. Well, yeah. So basically, in college, it was about 4 years for like my minor. 4 years for my minor, and then, well, now 12 years here. But just living in Japan. But see, when someone says they've studied by living in Japan, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt, because I met a lot of foreigners here who lived here for close to 20 years, but they can only read like basic menu. They can't really hold much of a conversation. It really all depends on how much you apply yourself once you're out here, because once you're here, you're to your own devices, right? So admittedly, when I first came here, I was lucky to be in a rural town where the only other English speaker was my co-teacher who taught English. Everyone else, like, they spoke broken English, but it was mostly Japanese that they could speak. So I had a lot of opportunities to practice. No English at all in any of the restaurants, any of the supermarkets, because it was a rural town in the countryside. But then once moving to this side, to the Kanto area, that's like English is everywhere. So I think my Japanese kind of took a small dip, because I got more comfortable. Like, okay, it's like I can read everything because there's English here. I got kind of lazy with my studies.
Right.
But then 2020 happened, and I hit my studies hard again. So yeah, now it's back. Now it's back. So
Yeah.
So how long would you say that you've been working in translation? Because I know that your current job is like that is the job. That is the job. But at the previous job, did you have to deal with that at all, or?
Yes. So like my main job, it was a startup, so my position changed probably like every 6 months or something like that.
Okay.
Like I started off as customer support, but my language skills were always used in one way or another, whether it's like a customer emailing, it's like, hey, what does this bit of text say? I can't read it. And so the rest of the CS team would relay that ticket to me. I'm like, this is what it says. So you can enjoy it like this, But eventually, once I started moving up, like I would translate, like we would sell products directly to the customers. So it's like anything from instant noodles to candy, to even like small electronics, like people want to make their own takoyaki or something like that, right? But they need to know how to operate these things or how to cook these things, and especially if it's like instant noodles with how our instant noodles is just that it's just like the noodles and then the seasoning. You know what to do with it, right? But then like you open a regular pack of Japanese instant noodles, there's like 3 different packs in there. It's like what are each of these things? It's like one is like the seasoning for the water, one is like the topping, one could be like another spice or something like that. But because a majority of our customers don't know that, so one of the things I had to do, especially I was typing out all these product descriptions, is reading all the necessary information, translating that, and then reworking it into marketing copy, basically.
Okay.
So I did that for about 2 years. I also served as a bit of an interpreter between the CEO who can't speak Japanese, to different partners or different just local, wherever you need to, like whether it's setting up a bank account or talking to the post office or something like that, because we dealt a lot with the local post office.
Right.
Just being the go between our team who couldn't speak English, and Japanese associates and whatnot. And there was that. Also, we also had a partner team in Osaka that we could make it with in both languages. That's some English speakers, but it was mostly Japanese. But yeah, and I would also translate nutritional information for these products that we would officially export into the US.
Right.
So you might I'll tell my companies. Have you ever heard of Japan Crate? You guys ever heard of Japan
I'm
Crate?
not sure.
Is it like one of those subscription boxes?
Yeah, but you can find not like because of work I've contributed, you can also find the crates in stores too. I think like Hot Topic and not Spencer's, like a lot of the places they sell like Japanese collectibles and stuff like that.
Okay,
yeah, that's where
I recognize this logo. Yeah, I was like, that sounds familiar, but I'm not 100% sure. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So I worked for that company, and there was an office in LA, and then there's an office in Tokyo, and I was the only Japanese speaking foreigner in the Tokyo office. So basically so there were other Japanese speakers, but they were all usually busy with doing their own thing. So that was where my role in translation was. It's just picking up the slack to where everyone else was busy doing something else. So yeah, and then right now it's just like full on 100% translating and localization too. So translating and localization, which are they're the same, but they also are two different mindsets. If you want to go deeper into like what local,
absolutely.
So like translation is what it is. It's like you translate the words that are given to you. You translate the Japanese into English. Localization is making sure your target market it'll make sense to your target market. So like it starts at from the user interface. It's like say how do you want to translate? Do you want to use character equipment, or do you want to say status menu or something like that? Those kinds of things, like those kinds of details are part of the localization process. And it's like also trying to keep in mind the amount of characters you use. Like, you don't want to use words that are like 10 characters long when there's only space enough for 8 characters. So that's some of the challenges localization faces. Like at that stage, it's like, what should we call this screen? So we would have to meet with some of the other planning, because I'm part of the scenario team, right? So we would meet with some of the other planning teams members and say, okay, if you click here, where does it go, and what's the difference between this screen and this screen? And then from there, he's like, okay, we'll call this status, we'll call this equipment, and they're like, okay, does this? Sometimes they might have an idea. Does this word make sense in English or to like a Western audience, the Western market? Like, no, it doesn't, because that's kind of like, it does, but it's not what we would use. Like
it'll sound
like that.
Sort of unnatural, but you want it to sound as like, I guess, like natively English as possible.
Exactly. It has to be a balance between what the original script, how it was written first, and a balance between that and also it making sense to your target audience. And another thing is, like, from a cultural standpoint, I think there's a new phrase that's been going hot, like culturalization, I think it was called. I can't remember. But let's just say, for example, you guys play Pokemon, right?
Oh, yeah.
Have you guys, like, Jinx, right? You remember how Jinx was like just like almost like blackface, like when she first came out, right?
Yeah.
And I think somewhere down the road, one of the localization team probably point out, like, yeah, this is not a good character to have. You should probably change it, stuff like that. That's also part of the localization process. Even the names, I gotta, like, some of my favorite translations come out of like the Pokemon games. It's like, you look at the Japanese names, it's like totally like punny in Japanese, totally punny. And then to decide which names to leave at that, and also to decide which names to also be punny in English. and how to cleverly dress it up like that. That takes a lot of work, a lot of brain power. It's really hard. I think so. Yeah, like Pokemon was Pokemon is a franchise I really admire for their translations. As is Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is great because I think they had to write all the comedy from scratch because all the puns are just like for English speakers, like English speakers alone.
Yeah,
I wonder about that sometimes. If like if you take some of the inspiration from the Japanese pun, but like some of them, like they wouldn't make sense at all in English. Because like, what is that day? Miku, isn't it? Is it the 29th of?
Oh, Nico Nihi, the 29th, like meat day. Is that what
meat day.
Oh,
if we were to have, if there was some kind of Miku pun in, and it was to be translated, like that wouldn't translate to English. Like
it wouldn't translate. So I think comedy is usually reworked from scratch.
It would have to be. Like,
This is like only sort of tangentially related, but talking about like all the punny names and stuff in Pokemon, I've been thinking recently about if you've ever played like the Mother series, like Earthbound and Mother 3.
A little bit, yeah.
I wonder about those too, because those are so that I've only played them in English because my Japanese isn't nearly good enough. Especially to understand Japanese humor. I feel like that's one of those things that you need to have a better language understanding. But the comedy in those games lands so well in English, and it's so witty. I'm like, there's no way that these jokes were translated one for one. Because
no,
there's no way that they would work this well if they were just literally translated.
Yeah. Do you deal with comedy in your translation work?
Let me think. I haven't dealt with a comedic character yet. I think because our scenario team tries to write the characters in like a fantasy setting, but because it's a pretty dark story, and I think if anything, our characters might be cute. You might be like full of sugar, but they'll never go and bust out jokes.
Okay.
Thankfully, they'll make it help me because I don't have a good sense of comedy. It's like I'll be the worst person to translate those kinds of things. It would take me forever. But like I'll give you an example from Animal Crossing because my wife plays the Japanese version of Animal Crossing. So like we'll kind of compare jokes time and time. Sometimes like you've played the most recent Animal Crossing, New Horizons.
No, actually.
The one on the Switch. I mean,
yeah. The one.
We haven't played it. We actually don't have a Switch, but like through osmosis, we know a lot about New Horizons.
Like everyone that we know has played it. Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. So like the most common fish you can get from fishing, the sea bass, right? And like, well, what's the joke in English? It's like, oh, it's a sea bass. It's more of like a C+ or something like that, right? It was something like that, right? The joke in English, because in English that fish is called Suzuki, right? And it's like, oh, it's a Suzuki. It's just Suzuki, right? That's how the joke. I think that's how it goes. And the joke behind that is because Suzuki is one of the most common names in Japan, right?
Yes.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So like, because it's a common fish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that just goes like I could be messing up some of the wording, but I think that's the general gist of what the joke was. So that's an example. Like I think every joke in Animal Crossing they had to do it from scratch because like there was no way that these puns like are like universal. Like there's no way it'll be understood universally. That's why I admire the team who put together the work for Animal Crossing. It's like, man, and some of the puns are just so ridiculous that like I love bad dad jokes. I love puns like that. It's like it tickles me a lot. So
yeah,
definitely.
Hard agree on that.
yeah. But yeah, going back to localization is like making sure that our target audience, like we came up with a set of rules. It's like we would use American English, American isms basically. So that would be like the main market, like which is funny for us because in our localization team, the RPM, our project manager, she's Canadian, so she's had to bite her tongue every time she had to omit the U from color, for example, or like how to spell things in like the American way, right? So like like that's something of spelling too. It's like, like we can't use the Commonwealth way. We got to use the American way, like
Yeah, America.
the American way, like take out that U from color, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
And just making sure that everything would make sense from a cultural standpoint and like idiomatic standpoint too. It's like, some of the, like, for example, we can't really say bloody hell because it's more of a British thing, right?
Right.
So like, even though a lot of the American users might understand it, it's mostly a British colloquialism, so we can't use that in any of our translations. Like,
because if your target audience is American, then that would almost be like coding the character as slightly foreign but not completely foreign.
Yeah.
That's almost how it would come off, I feel like.
Yeah, it makes it easier for our characters because the setting is like a European fantasy.
Right.
So like so European fantasy, like, think any kind of fantasy anime where every character is Caucasian, basically, right? There are a few characters that we have that are hinted as being inspired by other cultures, but for the most part, it's like a really European setting. So it makes it easier for me because, like coming from America, it's like I know what idioms work. I know what we speak, but that also comes with some of its own hurdles that stem from me being in Japan as long as I have, because sometimes, like as I mentioned before, like I just get used to accepting bad English, so and believing that, starting to convince myself that it is the right way to say. So then I'll type something out, and my PM will be like, "I don't think that's not the way you say it." It's like, it's not, and I have to like really think, how would I say it? It's like, and I think also teaching English, you don't use your idioms like out of the blue. You don't use those kinds of everyday idioms as much as you would often do it, because you're always teaching textbook language, right? So it's like bringing those back to make it sound more natural. That was another hurdle of mine. It's like, and also probably the biggest hurdle though is like living in Japan as long as I have. I just got used to internalizing the language. Like, spoken to me, I know exactly what you say without having to convert it to English in my head. So I'll speak back to you in Japanese, right? So I have to reintroduce that step of converting it into English in my head for this job.
That makes sense, because I have encountered that, not in Japanese, but I can empathize with that, because I have encountered that in English, where I understand what something means due to context and like intuition, and then somebody asks me to define what it means, and I'm like, I don't know how to describe this word.
Oh yeah, that happens frequently, because I'll ask you, what does that mean? Like,
and I'm like, I don't know.
Like if I asked you to define the word dogma, would you know how to define it? Right? Like
I can describe like
what
the effects of it,
and
I can give examples of it, but actually defining the word. So I imagine that when it's something that's not even in your native language, that you're like you said, like you're picking it up along the way, and it's like through intuition and like use rather than just textbook study, because like all the basic words that you learn in Japanese you could really easily define, right? Because you learn dictionary definitions of all of them,
like taberu,
taberu, and like ao, and like like all the colors, all the basic adjectives, all that stuff.
Yeah, then there's those words that what's a good example? Like it's probably a 3-syllable word, but if you try to convert to English, it's like 2 sentences. I can't think of. There's a bunch of those words. I can't think for the life of me off the top of my head.
I think when you start getting deeper into conjugation, like when you start talking about like, I am not able to eat, like that would just be a single word in Japanese, which would be like tabemasu.
Like taberaremasen.
Yeah.
Taberanai. Taberanai.
So which
There,
is like
there it is.
taberanai.
Yeah.
It's only 6 syllables. But it turns into I am unable to eat.
I am not able to eat. Yeah.
Exactly. Give me like a moment. I want to see if I can find one of those words that like it's like 3 or 4 syllables long, but it means like 2 or 3 sentences. Hold on. I keep a glossary of all the words I've learned from this job, and like I like every day. It's like, what the hell is this person saying? Look it up. All right, save it so I can study it later. You know.
Okay. Yeah.
That's cool.
There's just like so many of those. Hold on, let me see. You also get to learn a lot like a class, like in differentiation between all the characters. Like some of our scenario team makes the characters sound like they're from a samurai movie. It's like I know exactly this language. I've seen so many samurai movies. I know exactly what the sense. So it's like a breeze, right? Yeah. But then they get into a more deeper level, like language of that era. I'm like, oh, what? I never heard this before. It's like, what is this? Okay. So I'll pull up the word. It's called takkan. Takkan. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Takkan sida, right?
Mm-hmm.
Takkan. So the 2 kanji means like takkan, like tatsu means like to arrive, accomplished even, and then kan means like observe or appearance, right? Like to view, basically, right? So the dictionary definition of takkan suru is basically looking at the long term of things, looking in the big picture of things, looking at like it's like looking, but the nuance is like looking at in the look from a philosophical point of view, looking at the big picture, like the long term goal of it. And it's like I had to translate this word in a very small space. It's like, okay, what can I say without going over the limit of what I'm allowed? It's like this is an impossible word to translate. So I had to be creative. Like that's another thing with localization. Is like when the Japanese team like kind of sets the limits of the characters they can allow on screen. It's like the translation teams have to abide by those general limits, right? And so that's why for the majority of times we can never do the literal or the dictionary definitions of these words. One, because it's just kind of boring defining everything in a literal sense, and two, it takes away from the characters. It takes away from the characterizations of these people, right?
Yeah.
So we often have to be creative with the translations. So I think the way I translate is like translate this in this word in relation to this character is like she has a worldview of life or something like that. She has a big picture view on life. You know, it's like it kind of gets it. It kind of has the same nuance, but it's not the exact word by word definition as what is often thought about for this word. You know, there's a ton of those words. This is just the first word that came to mind.
Oh yeah.
But it's like all those like nuance, those words with just heavy nuance in it. It's like, all right, this like especially if you look at take the word out, like to meet, right? To meet, but there are different out that mean meet but use different kanji, and the reason why they use different kanji is because it's meet but depending on different situations, like meet by chance, meet an unfortunate event, meet like to meet when you're not expecting it, and to meet
isn't there like
just to generally meet,
like to fit together too, like
that's
a different owl though.
That's a different owl, but yeah, it's like like there's a lot. That's another thing between English and Japanese. English has more sounds and fewer characters, but Japanese has more sounds. No, I'm sorry. English has fewer characters, more sounds. Japanese has fewer sounds but more characters.
Yes.
It's like, so you get a lot of homophones in Japanese. You know, like out, for example. And they all mean different words. There's I think there's one of the things also, there's a lot of times like I get called out by my PM for giving the wrong translation because there's a lot of like, how do you say, evolution behind different words, same as in English. You know, it's like you might, there's a word you might hear like in movies and anime or games, like tsukimashita or tsuita, like watashi tsuita. Tsuita literally means to follow or to like put on, but in the context of whatever these characters are saying, I mean, they meant to say, I'm lucky.
Okay.
I got like, I'm lucky, and the evolution behind this certain phrase is because like luck has stuck with me. Un ga tsuita is like the original word, like un ga tsuita, like un means luck, right? So un ga tsuita means luck is clinging on to me, therefore I am lucky. And that's also a popular pun because un also means poop. So it's like if you step on poop. So if you step on poop, then you might be told by a Japanese friend, you're lucky.
Because it stuck to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because it's un that has stuck to you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another pun that we would come across. It's like, all right, how do I make it so it's accessible to American English speakers? You know, I just can't say, I can say I'm lucky. Or like, you know, if this exact situation, this exact story, like step and poop, you're lucky. You know, it's like, how do I make it accessible? You know, it's with the same kind of humor. Those are the challenges that a lot of people do localization have to tackle. And that's the fun part of it. It's just like so the kind of like another challenge when it comes to localization translation that I have personal experience is it's more than just your knowledge of Japanese colloquialisms, language, and even kanji and grammar. It's also your creative writing.
That makes sense.
That does make sense.
Creative writing is like, I think in the past, like since starting, my creative writing has leveled up extremely like high. Like it's still really bad, but yeah.
You have to be able to like take on a character's voice and like really portray, well, what would this character say in this situation, and what would, like, even though you have the words that they say, like how do you, like you're talking about with the localization, how do you make it so that it's them, as opposed to just the dictionary definition?
Exactly. And more on top of that, it's like, even though like this certain phrase is said by 3 characters, how do you make it so that each of the 3 characters sound unique, even though they're saying the same words?
Yes.
Yes.
That's another challenge. It's like, so that's something I have to learn. It's like my PM would say like, so-and-so already says it like this. Can you think of something else? It's like, crap, that's right.
That's like
how.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's like there's the meme with the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise where in English every single character, since they've gotten voices, every single character in pretty much every single game says "long time no see." And so once we started studying Japanese, it was like, oh, they're all just saying "hisashiburi" because that's like a really common thing to say. But it's always translated the exact same. So you just have like 20 characters constantly just like "long time no see." And to the point that it almost sounds ridiculous because people don't say that often in English.
Yeah, like it would be more appropriate, like, oh, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Like,
or for each of them to have like a different sort of voice on it.
Exactly. That's where the creative writing aspect comes. It's like, even though you have like 3 characters, 5 characters who say "hisashiburi," it's like, okay, how do I make it so that way it's this seductive lady saying it? How do I make it so that way it's this tomboy saying it? How do I make it so that there's this orphan who speaks like a 14-year-old girl who speaks like a 5-year-old saying it? It's like, that kind of like diving into the mindset of these characters. So it's like, what was I say? It's like, it feels something special when you finally hear, because another thing, part of my work is one of the things I also have to keep in mind is dictation, because everything that I write is going to be recorded by a voice actor or voice actress. So it's like, it has to be natural, so that way they won't stumble upon their words, and it has to be kind of easier to say, otherwise the time of them is going to take too long. Like, it's going to just it's gonna take like the recording session is gonna take forever.
Right.
So that's everything. Like it's all a lot of small pieces in this bigger machine. That is localization and translating, and that's what makes it really fun. And I think ever since starting this job, I've found I got a newfound appreciation of just every single game I played in the past. Like, oh man, like to think of those kinds of words, and then like, and you know how there's this argument of like, for example, with anime dubbing versus watching with subs, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, man, these voice actors, like some of them, are genuinely bad, but man, they put it, they the way, like, there's a lot of work to be put in behind the scenes. Like the person directing them has to be like, all right, say it with more intensity, or no, you're saying, like, remember, she's a seductive lady. She's trying to entice the main character to follow her schemes, stuff like that. And then it's like, just the process behind all that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of moving parts, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Honestly, it sounds fun. I love I mean, like we had talked about, like we play D&D, right? And so like the idea of like having all these different characters, and because I'm DMing a game that we're playing, and so I have to voice all the NPCs. Yes. And I try really hard to like give them all a unique voice and a unique character, so that they know that their player characters know like who they're interacting with, like. And yeah, there are a lot of moving parts, and there's so much to think about. Like, okay, well, how would this person react to this situation? Because no 2 or 3 or 4 characters are going to react to the same situation the same way. I totally get that. Like, where you have to have just like, you have to get in the character's head almost.
Yeah, even just like one small word can throw off like the feeling of a character. Like, for example, would this character say, "Shall we dance?" or "Let's dance"? It's like there's a whole like like the nuance is almost the same, but the way it's worded, it can have a different impact on the performance.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
I was going to ask you earlier, do you feel that having not lived in the US for more than a decade has impacted your, like, I know you talked about like you feel like your English has deteriorated. Do you feel like there are now English phrases that have come out with the new generation of people growing up here that maybe you aren't familiar with?
All the time. Yeah, I mean, like I was born in the 80s, so like there's definitely I've definitely come across language that that gets introduced to me like while I'm in Japan, because what is it, like being a jet, you like, what is it, you get introduced to all different sorts of folks, like all different types of ages from different types of backgrounds, but once I was in Japan, I almost felt like I was in, what's the word, kind of like stuck in a just kind of stagnated when it comes to stuff going on back home. Like, I don't know what's hot anymore. The trends. My only window to that is like Twitter, Facebook, just social media. It's like, oh, okay, I guess this is pop. I guess I like right now, the Bernie meme is popping right now. So like, it's like those kinds of things, right? But then you get all these new words. It's like, wait, what are people saying now? It's like, and like, I've been caught in bounce on that. I think my PM is about maybe 10 years younger than me or something like that. Like, so I'll say words, and then I'll translate words in a certain way, and she's like, well, is this something that like a 15-year-old would say? I'm like, you're right. This is something what a 30-plus-year-old named Ray would say. Shit.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what some of these phrases are like I didn't want to say, hold on a moment, don't rush. That was like the literally way. So I said, I made this character, she's like 14 years old. I made her say, hold your horses, right? And so she was like, you think this is something a 14-year-old would say? I'm like, oh my goodness. It's like 10-year-olds were saying it during my time. It's like, oh God.
That's what I was thinking, because growing up with like English dubs, of anime throughout the 90s, that's you're making me remember hearing those kinds of phrases then in translation that now, yeah, I don't think people are necessarily translating stuff the same way. That's I haven't even thought about that, but you're right. Like the language of the colloquialisms of the time in English were completely different to what they are now.
Exactly.
And that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, so I get called out a lot because of just like, I mean, my PM knows how old I am, so she laughs it off, but she's just like, hey, is a 14-year-old girl really gonna say this? I'm like, you're right, that's just me. God, you know.
I mean,
Sometimes
I feel old too, because like apparently, like I've heard the youngest generation right now, like with our generation, we say things like pupper and doggo and things like that, and apparently the new generation is like, ew, no, gross, we hate that.
For real, dude?
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
That was only like pupper and dog. That's like 2 or 3. Was it only like 4 years ago? Maybe.
Yeah,
it's not even that long ago.
That's what it feels
like. Like cringe too. Isn't cringe supposed to be like cringe now?
Like cringe is now
like,
cringe.
Using
like,
the word cringe is now what we would have called cringe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like cringe is now an adjective. Like that's so cringe, right? Like
yeah.
yeah, I know that, right? That's so cringe. Like when I first heard it, I was like, even like, was it? Remember when oh God, what was it? Oh God, it's escaping me right now. I know all the pop stars used to say it. Swag, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Swag, yeah.
Yeah.
Swag became a word, but I was like, why are they saying swag? Swag is like the stuff you get like at a con or something. Like, I got all this free swag, you know?
Yes.
It's like, but you mean swagger? Now you guys are calling it swag now? Oh, that's kind of weird sounding, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember because I remember when swag was like super duper, like everybody.
That's like
was
when we
saying
first
it.
met.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was about a decade ago, and at this point,
I never see
like
it.
you never hear people say that anymore.
Not anymore. Language moves. I mean, it's because of the internet. Language evolves so quickly now.
Yes.
But I think thankfully, well, depending on the game, of course. Like our game is like, you know, you're like medieval European fantasy, so we don't have to adhere to those kinds of evolved words. We like it's so cringe. Like I'm never gonna use that in a translation. So we try to keep it kind of general, all ages, because that's another thing we have. Like, who is our audience, right? It's like we want all ages. Like we want a 14-year-old to play. We also want someone who's 35 years old to play it. So we got to come. There has to be a balance. It's like, or is that all those, like each of those age groups could understand, and also let them understand. Okay, this is a 19-year-old girl speaking these words. You know. So thankfully, so that's a good thing that I don't have to keep up with the latest trends, unless I was translating a game specifically made for like Gen Zs. You know, it's like it's like.
Ooh, that would be tough.
Yeah,
that would be tough. Yeah. So I think that would be my biggest. If I were to translate a game like that, that would be a difficult time for me. Also, comedy.
Yeah.
I would never be able to translate comedy correctly. Like I could try. Oh man. The characters I love translating the most are the ones that are like the superhero types, because I love superheroes, right? I ate up superhero media, like both in Japan and the US. So like my PM's like, man, you're really good at translating these like action sequences. Like, yeah, you have no idea the kind of stuff the kind of entertainment that I just inhale. It's like
Well, I mean, like, of course, what you're most interested in is going to be one of your strengths. Because like that's what you're exposing yourself to the most. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and you know, like, but the characters I have the worst time, or the characters I have the hardest time translating right now are the kawaii characters, the cutesy characters. They're like, is this cute enough? I don't know. Is this overly cute? It's like, tone it down a little bit. You know, it's like, okay. You know, it's like, or like make it cute. That's kind of like, she sounds like a 30-year-old right there. I was like, ah, man. You know? So
cute. Yeah, so like, cute, I mean, that's hard to strike a balance with, I can imagine.
Yeah. Oh, another thing that depending on the game and depending on the decisions made by the team, another thing that's pretty difficult to translate are honorifics, like
Ooh, yeah.
like Nesan, like Nissan, Sama, like like it just that the decision has to be made first. Like, okay, are we gonna translate these? Like for example, you have a girl who calls the main character like Onisan, but they're not related by blood. How are we
Right.
going to um, still illustrate that kind of brotherly affection without resorting to calling him big bro, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know
oh, go ahead.
because I know a lot of like, oh no, I know a lot of like fan subbers might just keep those honorifics in because it's easy. You don't have to keep much thought, and like usually the fans know what it means. But when you're trying to market to an audience who probably have no idea about anything about Japanese honorifics, that's a different ball game right there too.
Yeah. Because I was gonna say honorifics almost feel like, which obviously for social settings there's a reason that they're like this, but they're almost like a shortcut for the reader or the listener to understand relationships and power dynamics.
Yeah.
But that doesn't exist in English, so you have to express it different ways with how they talk to one another, because just that one shortcut isn't available in English.
It's funny because I'm actually in the process of writing just something for myself, basically, and I have it set in Japan, and all of the characters are Japanese and everything, and I have one character who's kind of grown up in the household of another two characters. They're not blood related, but like the one is the same age as the other one, and then there's an older brother, and I expect both of them to call him Nissan, even though the one's not related. And for me, I was just like, because it's just for me, I was just going to have him say Nissan, even though I'm writing it in English, you know, because I know what that means. But I was thinking about, like, if someone else read this, how would I write that? Like, how would I convey that, like, brotherly affection that just doesn't exist in English?
No.
It's hard.
It's hard, and like for me, there's another layer to it, because like my ethnic heritage is Filipino, so we do have honorifics in our languages. So for me, Nisan and Onesan, that's like, oh, that's just like saying Kuya and Ate, you know. It's like, so for me, it's not difficult to understand honorifics. So in the beginning, I was like, all right, like she's gonna call, like, is it strange calling him Onisan even though it's not, or big bro even though they're not related by blood? And instinctively I said, yeah, there's nothing wrong with me, because it's like, you know, just from my cultural heritage, it's like, yeah. But then I was like, wait, no, I gotta step back, think about the general audience, and it's like, yeah, they're not gonna get it. Why is she calling them bro? Are they related? And it's gonna cause confusion with the users, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
that was another hurdle. But in the end, you just have to make their word choices, like make them appear to be like older sister like, or like someone who would cling on to someone as if it's a young girl clinging on to an older brother. And you know, once you have that kind of mindset, it gets a little easier, you know. And you don't have to fall back on those big bro or big sis, little sis names. So
yeah, that makes
sense. And I will say, I think with subtitling, it's not as jarring to see that as somebody who watches anime. Like if I see big bro or something like that, like it's like you said, like I know what it means. But I think when it's dubbed, and that like continues in with the voice acting, that sometimes feels off.
Is it almost because it feels like subtitles and dubs are intended for different audiences, and that subtitles, there's almost an understanding that somebody who's not necessarily super big into anime is going to opt for the dub. So with subtitles, there's almost an expectation that like you have some level of experience or understanding in the genre,
I guess,
or in
so
the medium.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I think that would be the case. Yeah. I mean, I can see that. I also think just like reading something, I'm more forgiving, I suppose, because it's like you read all kinds of different stuff.
That's true.
Like books and magazine articles and Twitter feeds and all that kind of stuff. So like reading kind of, it's different than actually hearing the language and being like, who says that? You know what I mean?
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So yeah, like, what is it? In the end, yeah, like it goes back to how just your creative writing skills, like how well you can get around that obstacle. Now I in college, I've only taken one creative writing class, and that was only to pass an elective requirement. But so I think it was just a skill that I had to really pull in my experience of all the games I've played and also all the movies I've watched. Thankfully, I watched a lot of movies and I played a lot of games, so like it just kind of okay, what would like okay, this is like this kind of character. What other kinds of characters have I seen in movies? What did they say? And it just kind of and it becomes this kind of big amalgam of what I remember of those characters, and it works out in one way. And then like eventually, like I stopped relying on that crutch. Like, okay, now I know what this kind of character would say in this situation. You know.
Yeah. You kind of learned over time with the experience. Yeah.
So, like, even though even though I've been professionally translating for not even a full year yet, I look back at the very first characters I translated. Like, man, did I really make these word choices? Like, it's not that long ago, but already it's like have you guys ever looked back at like the first videos you guys uploaded?
Oh my gosh,
yes.
I mean, we've actually went through the process on both of our channels of going through some of the oldest videos and being like, okay, we just need to completely redo this because it's just so bad.
They're just like not up to our quality standards, essentially.
Yeah, which and I mean, of course they're not. That was at the beginning. It was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, of course they're not going to be. Like, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, you're still finding your feet, right? So it's like
there's nothing wrong with your first stuff being kind of crap, but but I totally understand going back and being like, ooh, yeah.
Like there's so many times I watched my like the very first videos I've ever uploaded on my channel, and I was like, I could just redo this and it's just like extra content. But then I look at how many views I have. Like, I don't want to lose all those views on that video. It's kind of like a waste,
That makes
sense. I'll just keep it. It'll just be like there for me to remember my progress.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah,
I respect that. 100%.
Okay, so you had mentioned that you'll work on translation and localization, and sometimes your project manager will give you like pointers or ask you to change certain things about it. But what is like the structure otherwise with where you're working? Do you work with other translators or proofreaders or anyone like that, or is it pretty much just you as like the translator?
So we have right now about 4 or 5 translators in-house. Like before I came on, they were using like freelance translators because there are agencies that just have freelance translators like you can get in contact with. But I think the company figured that or realized that they can get a lot more work done if they just invested in an in-house translator. But when it comes to English, it's just me and the project manager. So she does a bunch of her own translations for other characters too, in addition to her other. I'm not sure exactly how high up the chain she is, how high up the ladder she is, but she's got a ton of other responsibilities too. But I think so. I translate my share of scripts, and then once I get it to a comfortable enough level, I send it over her way. She goes over it. It's like, I guess if you ever written for like a magazine or editor or like a newspaper, that thing. It's like you write your first draft, send in, editor just like marks it with like a red pen and just like, all right, this needs to be changed. It's basically kind of like that. So send back to me. It's like, this this place, this line needs more anger. This is not natural. That's like probably the most common feedback I get. This is kind of like, it sounds kind of unnatural. It's like, crap, it does. You know,
Okay.
Make this more cute. Make this more like what she would say. I'll get that kind of feedback, then I'll readjust everything. And then every time I go back and I'll always think of something better, because it's like at the time, the first time, it's like, I don't know how to translate this. It's like, it literally means this. I can't think of a cool way other than this. So I'll try to reword it, and then she might give me some hints, like, or she might give me some feedback that'll trigger like a better idea. Like, there you go, and I'll write it, and then so it's just a whole back and forth process.
Okay.
So yeah, when it comes to the English side, it's like, I think when it comes to like the Chinese and the Korean side, it's more like we get outsourced proofreaders.
Okay.
But when it comes to the English side, it's just me. Like the project manager is a native English speaker, so like I send it to her, and then she gives feedback, and then I get it back. I get the spreadsheet back. We work on it until we're both 100% confident that okay, this is good. Let's go to the next character now. Yeah. So
okay. What about the original writers? Do you have much contact with them? And like, if none of them are fluent in English necessarily, what is that? What is that like, knowing that you're putting their work into a different language and that they probably can't understand necessarily what you're doing?
I think it comes with just trust in each other. First of all, when it comes to that, like, first of all, it might sound weird, but even though me and my project manager, we're both native English speakers, we speak to each other in Japanese in the office.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Like, we treat English as a foreign language because the language we're outputting the source material, right? But we speak to each other like 98% in Japanese, unless we're tired and we'll just say something in English, right? We're just tired at the end of the day. But for the most part, it's all Japanese. It's a 100% Japanese work environment. And in the software we use for our team communications, like, all the scenario writers are there. So if we ever have a question, we just write, also in Japanese, just like, like there might be something that it's like more, you know how in some movies they'll say a sentence but they won't finish it, but kind of depend on the situation, you'll know what they're trying to say. But because all I'm looking at is a spreadsheet and I'm reading the situation, maybe I'm not, there might be a time where I'm just not getting the bigger picture. And then so I'll just DM the author of the script and be like, in this situation, does she meant to be saying it in this way or this direction? Like, what kind of direction were you thinking of? And then they'll give me a straight answer. Oh yeah, it's like this. Or sometimes they'll be like, oh, it didn't really. That's just flubber. You can translate as whatever you like. You know, in the end, she's just shooting the breeze. So, you know, whatever the image they had, whatever idea they had in mind. And I was like, all right. And then like that kind of communication is like, it's kind of expected by both the Japanese and the English side. It's like, because the Japanese writers, they go through their own steps of like, you know, writing and proofreading to make sure it's to their standards. So they expect us to kind of do the same level of work too. They have that same kind of trust with us, and we go back and forth. And then it's like, if there's a spot where like, well, is it like, do they mean it this way? I don't know. Let's ask the writer. Okay, this is what they said. Okay, let's do it. You know.
Yeah.
So it's like communication channels are always there. So, and we're all in the same like chat room. So it's like it's open communication. Everyone can see everything. So like, there's never a time when we're just totally lost on how to translate anything, because like, and even like the scenario writers, we all sit in like the same, like within like 20 feet of each other. So it's like we're just like you can just tap their shoulder literally and be like, hey, what is this character trying to say in this situation? You know. So
well, that's nice that you have access to the authors and to just be able to have a conversation with them like that, so you can make sure that you're getting the intended point across.
Yeah, because like that's the last thing you want, because like in the end, it's like, as you guys might have hinted at earlier, it's like, because they don't speak English, well, once everything is put together on screen in the game, like if it's a cutscene or if it's like something, and then whatever is everything is animated based on the Japanese script. If the English script isn't portraying that same kind of nuance,
Yeah,
then it's like a bad mark on us. So it's like crap,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Because I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, you want to be telling the same story.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what does what does a typical day look like in that case?
So for me, well, it depends. Like, well, for me, since I mainly translate scripts, then dialogue. I'll come into the office, log in. If there's any kind of my project manager sits right next to me. So if there's any kind of business of the day that we need to go over before starting work, we'll talk about it. But because of COVID, we in-office conversations kind of kept down to a minimum, just to kind of help prevent anything from being spread around. So it's like we just like communicate to each other through text. Like even though we're right next to each other, it's like everything is through text. Like, what I was gonna say. So once I know like which characters need to be prioritized as far as their scripts being completed or tackled on first, then I'll have my how do you say, like my priorities. Like I need to do this character. Once I got this draft finished, send it over. Then I'll work on this one. And then once I get the feedback for that character back, stop this character, put this back on. And I look at it's all spreadsheets. It's all in Excel. So it's like like 98% of my day is on Excel. The other 2% is PowerPoint. So it's like and it's all just going back and forth between communicating between the PM and also the authors, also making sure that everything is consistent with not only the characters themselves but also the world that the designers are trying to establish. Like so there's all these fleshed out PowerPoint slides about, okay, this is what this town is, this is the inspiration behind it, this is the idea, behind the architecture, behind the people. So this is how people are going to act like this. So we always have to go back and forth, like, okay, is this consistent with this world? So like there was a topic that came up recently. It was like because it's a European inspired fantasy, right? It doesn't take place in the real world at all. So it's like, is the use of words such as like, God damn or Jesus Christ, or can we say that in this world, since like those don't have any historical significance?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like those kinds of like they won't come up at the start of the day, but they'll come up as we're going along, because it's like I had to translate a character that's just full of rage, right? And we're trying to keep everything down to a certain rating. Like, we can't do R. It has to be like PG-13, right? So it's like, we can't say bullshit, So it's like, can we say goddamn? Is that okay to say,
Yeah.
Can we say goddamn? Can we say like these words, even though they have historical like history evolving from, Christian roots, right? Even the words like geez, it's like my project manager didn't really have an idea that geez probably came from Jesus Christ.
Right.
It's like, for her it was just a regular word, like geez, So it's like, is that okay to use? And then in the end, it's just all these like different approvals. Like, she might, if she doesn't know, she'll check with like the author or some of the higher ups, and she'll get back to me. And then it's all that kind of communication, that going back and forth. Okay. And then to complete a character, it depends on how difficult the character is. Like the quickest I've ever completed one character's translation is like 2 days. Okay. It's like so this is including like all their scripts and everything they say in battle, stuff like that. And it's like one day it's like the whole first draft, and then second day is like going back and forth, and okay, boom, done.
Okay.
The longest I've taken was about 4 days, because it was just, it's like it needs to be more angrier, but then the Japanese uses all these weird, awkward words that would be really strange if translated into English, or it wouldn't be cool enough. So it's like I just had a bad writer's block this day. It's like
I see. So it sounds like you don't actually have like the visuals of the actual game to base the words off. Is that correct?
It's more like, rather it's all concept art. Like we get the concept art, like they'll go through like Google Images, so like kind of paste together what their idea is. Like we also have a team of artists who like draw different assets, so that way they can paint a bigger picture. But at the very beginning, they it's a lot of Google Images. Like, okay, this is what the town looks like. They'll post pictures from like different movies or just like different like they'll look up a bit. This area is based off of Switzerland. This area of Switzerland. This area of the Netherlands. And they'll just have this is what a typical village would look like, and then that's what we'll have as reference. And then the artist will draw up what the characters look like.
Okay.
And and then the scenario writers will have like the whole profile to go like she's 19 years old. This is her occupation. This is her weapon. This is her personality, and that's what we have to go by. And then so I have to keep those in mind when crafting her English dialogue. So yeah, so it's all just keeping in the name of keeping everything consistent.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like you have all the pieces, but you don't have like the whole product because you're working on it at the same time that the games are being developed.
Yes.
It's not like you're going back and translating it after the fact.
It's like a simultaneous release.
Yeah.
Yes. So like basically the planning is all going kind of like at the same time. It's like what is it? As far as my visibility is concerned, it's really like on the creation of the characters. I don't really get visibility on what the game actually would look like as the game. It's more like I just see the concept art. I see the concept pieces, and I see some of the artwork that I need. That really only I need to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see any kind of finished product yet because it's like I'm just not that high up the food chain. I guess I'm just not high up the ladder. So
when you do see the finished product, what is it like? Like once it's all done?
Oh man, it's like I wrote that character.
I love that.
It's like once I hear my the characters like the voice actors reading the dialogue that I wrote for them in the game, I just know I'm gonna be like, yo, dude, this is like I wrote that. I didn't think of it from scratch, but I pretty much had to craft it on my own using like the Japanese as the groundwork, right? But I made that girl talk like a gangster, and then she's talking like a gangster. Look at that. You know?
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, like, what is like satisfying feeling?
What was that?
Oh, it's just like sounds like such a satisfying feeling.
It is. It's like even though I'm not seeing any of the finished product yet, like my PM is the one who kind of is the liaison between all the voice actors. They're all based in North America, so she has to go to like a recording studio and kind of communicate with the voice actor through the studio. Like they're all in the US, right? And then she'll come back to me with if it's a character that I wrote. They'll give me she'll give me their feedback like, so-and-so loved the script. Like it was so fun. I'm like, yeah. It's like, and like I made that script to be like heroic and fun and like just badass, you know? It's like, and like, yeah, they really liked it. Like, yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool that you're able to have like all those channels of communication with all the different like parts of what make it come together.
Yeah, I think that's the benefit of being an in-house translator. I think if I was freelance, I probably wouldn't have that much visibility. It's more like, here's a script, translate. All right, thank you. Here's your payment. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a few freelance translators, and that's what it seems like. It's because they try to take on as many clients as they can, and they're trying to do this. They try to do the best work as they can, but they try to do it as quickly as possible. But some kind of balance, right? But me, since I'm in house, it's like I have more. I'm able to take more care off of what my product is.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. And I'm glad that you touched on the differences between freelance and in-house because I think some people might be interested in that and how you have kind of more communication with everybody else on the team, whereas the freelance is probably not communicating anywhere near as much. Like,
well, there are like pros and cons. Like when you're in-house, you have a team, you have an office, you have a project that you're going to see through to the end. if you're freelance, you might see that project all the way to the end, depending on the project. But once it's done, you're done. You go on to the next client, right? But at the same time, you can work on your own schedule. It's like if you want to take on 5 clients at a time, you can if your time management is good enough. And also, that's the thing, is you have to learn how to market yourself. You can, like, you set your rate. I'm worth, like, 5 cents a character or something like that. Not 5, just for example, right? 10 cents a character. That's my rate. Like every freelancer has that kind of rate. I'm either this much money per character translated, or this much money per project. Depends on the freelancer, and also depends on the genre. If it's a creative translation like games, or if it's like translating contracts or something, that's another realm. Translating contracts, translating hard paperwork and stuff like that, translating legal documents, that's another thing too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That totally makes sense.
It's a completely different kind of translation.
Yeah.
So, like, I suck at legal translation, so I'm just so happy that because of the amount of entertainment I consume, that creative translation just kind of falls in with what I'm able to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
It matches up with what you enjoy.
But I consider doing freelance, but it's like I didn't have any kind of resume that could help me out to attract clients. So I was like, I got to start off somewhere else. So that's why I decided to be an in-house translator. But yeah, some people prefer just, like, they don't want to be in-house. They just want to be freelance because they want to make their own schedule. They want to live that digital nomad life, I mean, like I said, there are plus and minuses. It's like everyone's going to have their preference.
Yeah.
Well, in your experience so far, and with other people that like other translators that you've come in contact with, do you feel like living in Japan is sort of a prerequisite for doing translation, or do you think it's kind of,
It depends. I'd say because I've lived in Japan, I have several advantages. Like, I know, like, because living in Japan, I've had the opportunity to speak to people of all different ages. So I know if a kid says this is what they mean. And maybe someone who's lived in the U.S. but they study Japanese, they might not know that this is what a kid means when they speak this. It's kind of a vague translation or vague explanation, but you get more exposure to local colloquialisms by living in Japan. That's what I'm trying to say. If you're outside of Japan, I mean, granted, there are still companies that hire outside of Japan. Like, for example, Nintendo's English localization team are US based. They're not Japan's based. But like Square Enix's, it's based in Japan. It just depends on the company. But they still want you to have some kind of JLPT regardless. And 2 is like the bare minimum, but N1 is really the way to go. But yeah, like, you can still do translation if you live outside the US. I think also depending on the translation, you could probably do legal translation just because that's probably the more straightforward types of translation. Translating documents, translating medicine, translating what is it, like instruction manuals, stuff like that. Because those aren't going to use colloquialisms, but creative translation will. So, like, that's one of the benefits of being in Japan. It's because you get exposure to that. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't imagine you are making many puns in an instruction manual.
Yeah, exactly. You're not talking about sea bass or Suzuki's.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a very interesting instruction manual.
I know, right? I guess if you're making an instruction manual for a video game, well, I guess that's still going to be on the
creative
games,
side.
The creative side.
Yeah.
That's true. I guess on kind of the same note, in all of your experience with studying and then moving to Japan and getting work in translation, what would be your like biggest advice, or like something that you wish you had known, both with studying in the first place, studying Japanese, and with starting to work in translation, if somebody is looking to pursue either of those?
Well, first of all, like when it comes to studying Japanese, I'd say like make a lot of Japanese friends. Like if you're going to study Japanese in college, there's probably going to be a community of Japanese exchange students. Make a lot of those friends, because I mean, sure, they're trying to learn English, but you can make it something like you scratch my back, I scratch yours, or how's that saying go? Or basically, you can teach them English, they can they can teach you Japanese, right? And then so one of the biggest mistakes I did in my journey in studying Japanese is, I studied really hard in university, came to Japan, got lazy just because I was just living life of a jet. I mean, jets are pretty what's the word? They live a life that's relatively luxurious compared to other English teachers in Japan. If jet's an option for you guys, a possibility in the future, I definitely recommend it. Like, it's a lot of fun, most definitely. But when it came to my Japanese studies, I got extremely lazy because I ended up spending my free time mostly on traveling and partying. Even though the language was around me and I was using the language in the office, I wasn't progressing, or rather acquiring as much new language as I could have. So that's the thing. Like, time management is another thing. Just really taking the initiative, when it comes to studying Japanese. And also, like, what I used to do, I used to keep a notebook. Every time I come across a new word, I write it down. And then just keep it, right? Nowadays I use my iPad, so I keep them every time I learn a new word, especially when working. I write it down, keep them in my digital flashcards. I'll just drill myself, every chance I get, to make sure I remember them. So if they come back again, okay, I know that word means to destroy by crushing to pieces. It's like,
But it sounds like even with you at an N2 level, you're still using flashcards. Like, you're still studying.
Studying never ends. Studying never ends. Just because, mainly because the language I translate is not necessarily going to stop at N2 either. So there's even words that aren't even on, there's this website, gisho.com. It's a good. So or org, I'm sorry, gisho.org, and it'll say this is normally a word for N1 or N2, but then there's these. I often translate words that don't have any of those markings at all. It's because it's an extremely uncommon word. Probably only found in literature or something like that. You get those kinds of words. So that's why, the studying's never going to end. It's you're always going to be acquiring new words. And especially when, if you enjoy Japanese movies, any kind of Japanese form of entertainment, there's always going to be something like, well, what's he talking about? And then so what I like to do when I watch Japanese movies here, it's I always put on the Japanese subtitles, because sometimes they just blur their speech and what did he say again? So it's good to have the subtitles. I don't know that word, so let's write it down. I would always write down a new word I've learned and just keep it somewhere. So even though I may not use it ever in the future, it's just good to kind of have that in the back of my mind, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to finding work as a translator, there are a lot of different paths, I think. First of all, there's networking. If you know some guy who works at a game company, and they keep, just keep in hey, if you have any openings for any translators, keep me updated, stuff like that. Networking is key in any kind of industry, really. There are websites in which you can kind of start your freelance career, if you will. ProZD is one of the biggest ones, prozd.com, where you can make you can make a profile, advertise, try to market yourself, and you can get clients through there. Also Upwork is but Upwork is more for any kind of thing. It's like Fiverr almost, but more higher level.
Okay.
But ProZD is all for translation. So you say, okay, I'm Japanese to English, or English to Japanese. So you gotta declare your directions. So if you want to, some people start off with that. Some people start off doing work for Gengo. I think that's what it's called, Gengo.com. I think there's all these different websites where you can basically list yourself as a translator, then people, just like it was Tinder or something, like, okay, I'm going to swipe right on you. It's like, and so that's how a lot of people get started in their translator careers. They build up a resume of that. So then on what you might see on a translator's resume is like, I translated fantasy RPGs, I translated contracts, I translated, this is my speed. I can translate 600 words in 8 hours or something like that, or in a day, or 600 words in however much time. And that's usually how a translator's resume, that's the kind of information a translator's resume would include.
Okay.
Right.
Stuff like that. So like, just also learn how to craft a resume as a translator, because it's going to look a little bit different than a standard resume, I think. And then just you gotta start from like a low place, whether it's freelancer or a freelance, or someone like me who's just translating dialogue, and I don't really have much, what's the word, I don't really have my hands on the actual, like managing the recording process of the English voice actors, or meeting with the team on how the design of the menu should look like. Those are all part of localization too. I'm more on just right now, my role is just the dialogue and just making sure everything that I put out makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like the first step for me. So, and then once you build up a few more titles in your resume, then you can be more attractive, and you can like head for the big dogs if you want to, because they're hiring translators all the time. Like I've applied through so many recruiters here. I've applied directly through the many game companies' homepages, their websites. Like it'll never show in the English website. It'll always show in the Japanese website though, like the kind of positions they're hiring for.
Yeah.
I see.
Like,
okay.
There's like, that's one thing I noticed. It's like I'll go on like Konami's website, Konami US, like there's nothing about there's careers, but it's not as detailed as the Japanese side. There's like all these like, and they're crystal clear, like the benefits, how much you get paid and stuff like that. It's
that's
really
nice.
good. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I would just, it makes sense. Like if you're going to be applying for translating Japanese to English, like you need to know Japanese. So of course it would be behind the wall of the Japanese website, I suppose. Like you need to know that. Like
exactly. But I say above all, something that's probably, as I've hinted throughout this recording, the thing that's going to be equally as important as your Japanese level is your creative writing ability.
Yeah.
It's like for example, I tried applying for Square Enix because they're always hiring translators, right? The very first test isn't a translation test. It is a fan fiction test.
Okay.
Oh.
You got to write a fan fiction. It changes, I think, each year. But when I try to do it, I failed, by the way, because my creative writing was crap. It says like basically take a character, have a villain who's descended from a villain of an existing Square Enix game, and meets a character from that game, and then that encounter. So it's like very open-ended, and it's fan fiction. That's a really creative approach to a translation test, is because it tests right away your creative writing ability. And because if you've played any Square Enix title, you know that like there's a lot of work put in to their world building, to their storytelling, right? So that's what's important to them. So creative writing is going to be for game translation. Creative writing is going to be as equally as important as Japanese ability.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm halfway there because I've got a degree in English, so.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. It's like I never realized how important creative writing would be until starting it professionally. So yeah.
That's definitely not a factor of it that when we started this series I would have
considered.
No,
yeah.
Definitely not.
Well, I mean, we kind of touched on it, and like, how do you maintain a character's voice?
Yes.
And I think
in the previous episode, do you mean?
And I think that relates to creative writing because in order to have voice, like you need to be able to portray it. Like
and even beyond that, like, like you take Star Wars, for example, it has the opening crawl, right? Imagine
Mhm.
translating that to another language, and you have to set the same kind of tone, but in a different language. That's another part of it too. It's like
Mhm,
if there's a part of the game where it's just basically breaking down the world, telling the story of what's happening and stuff like that, you got to be creative to set the same kind of tone that's originally envisioned by the original authors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, that's where a lot of the challenge is. In addition to knowing what the Japanese is saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that totally makes sense.
Mhm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, you'd want to keep the tone, like you're talking about, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
totally makes sense.
Yeah. So you've been in Japan, you said 12 years now.
This is my 12th year here.
12
Yeah.
years. Okay. Over the course of that time, what are some of the like largest or most memorable moments of culture shock that you experienced? And were they early on, or was it stuff that you wouldn't have expected and then it came up like years later?
So okay, like culture shock can for me it came out in different types of forms. Before coming to Japan, studying Japanese in school, you hear about a lot of the things that they do differently in Japan. So you kind of came into the country kind of expecting a lot of it. But some of the things that I've experienced, first of all, sizes of food, like,
Mhm.
coming from America, like everything is super sized in America. It's like everything is tiny in Japan. Like, have you guys been to Japan yet?
Not yet.
No.
No, yeah. So like if you go to McDonald's, even like a large size anything in McDonald's is equal to a medium size in the U.S.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Just that's one thing. Like that's you hear about it, but then when you actually see it in front of you, it's like, I mean, it's better for your health probably.
Mhm.
So you're not inhaling as much grease and oil, but um, yeah. Etiquette. First of all, business etiquette.
Mhm.
If you're working for a Japanese company, business etiquette is something that it took me a lot to get used to. Like, of course, you have your Ohayo gozaimasu, and at the end of the day, you say your Otsukare sama desu, right?
Mhm.
Good morning, and thank you for all your hard work. Like, you say that in the beginning and the end of the day.
Mhm.
But even more than that, like as we discussed, like different how being careful on how you should not only in how you address your coworkers, but how you express yourself.
Mhm.
The difference between watashi and boku, for example.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a struggle for me in the beginning because Keigo is difficult. I don't know if you guys have studied Keigo yet.
Yes. Figuring out how when it's appropriate to use Keigo versus just normal speech, and then figuring out when to use which,
Yeah.
not honorific, but which I you're supposed to use, right?
Yeah.
Like
And even
watashi versus watashi, and yeah.
And even beyond that, written Keigo is like another level too, because like when you write professional letters, it's not something you actually speak. Like it's not. Those aren't actually words you would converse with.
Mhm.
Like writing business is a whole different art form.
Mhm.
Compared to when it comes to like comparing to speaking business Japanese.
Mhm.
That took a while to get used to. Also, unspoken language was, from like as an American, we're used to being told no. Yeah, go for it, right?
Yes.
But then in Japanese, you might be met with a,
Yes.
We learned all about the chotto.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because one thing
they never say no.
They never say no.
No.
It's like that's a big difference is that Japanese is a very non-confrontational culture, both in its language, not only in the culture and as the people, but in the language itself too. It's like they'll never blatantly say no. Instead they'll just kind of like if you invite them to a party, they won't say nah, I'm busy. They'll be like, sorry, I got other plans.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta wash my hair or something.
Yeah.
We definitely came across that in our studies, and it's something that we picked up on pretty early on, and like as a class, we all kind of like enjoyed that that aspect of it. Like, how do you come up with ways to get out of things that, because I think we had a class session one time where we had to get like invited to something.
Yes, and we had
we had to turn them down.
Right.
In a way. Yeah.
Another thing, did you guys have you guys learned about what happens like after work hours, like the enkai or the nomikai, the drinking parties?
Yes. Yes.
So like that is a staple in Japanese culture. It's an unspoken part of the workday. Like because if you don't show up, that means you're out of the club, basically. It's kind of so like, I mean, I didn't mind. That wasn't a big of a culture shock to me. But what was a big culture shock for me is that, you know how the saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? What happens in the Enkai stays in the Enkai as well.
Oh.
I see.
So like, you know, everyone gets so hammered because Japanese people just pound them down, right? Like there might be some clothes flying off. There might be some you know, weird kinds of sexual harassment-y stuff going on. Like, hey, you know, the next day, everyone goes about business as usual. It's like normal. No one talks about anything. It's like nothing happened the night before. It's just like, yeah, it's just another work day. It's like, dude, we like that guy right there had his shirt off, his tie around his neck, and he was singing like he was singing YMCA karaoke. It's like no one's gonna talk about it. That was amazing, right? It's like, no, it's like it just no. It's like no one's gonna talk about it.
Yeah, that's definitely an aspect that I wasn't aware of. That because like you're saying, you learn about that even just in Japanese language class. They're like, if you're gonna get a job, you need to expect that you're gonna be doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But no, none of our teachers have ever brought that up.
I think my only exposure to that is actually a Gretsuko. Where she goes and they have the party and like she says something really bad to her boss or something, and then the next day like everybody acts like it didn't happen.
Dude, a Gretsuko is an excellent reference to daily office life in Japan.
Is it pretty accurate?
It's pretty damn accurate.
Okay,
like,
cool.
It's pretty. I mean, of course, it's anime. It's what is it? It's what's the word? It's exaggerated. Just
yeah.
But the roots are there. Like there are reasons why characters act the way they do. Like all the shit talking that the Fennec Fox does behind everyone else's back. You know, the reason why, like, you know, why Agretzko is the one made to serve tea because she's the lady, and then like she's a girl, and then she takes out all her rage at karaoke. You know, and you know all. There's reasons behind each of those characters, and it's wonderful. Like I absolutely love Agretzko. Agretzko is great.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows. Like we've been keeping up with it every time a new season comes out. We're like,
It's amazing. Like it's like I myself, because I work in a game company, it's kind of like just a bunch of dudes and nerds, so we don't get to that level. But like my wife has met with similar circumstances in her own office, and it's kind of like, yeah, I know that kind of person. I know someone who's like that. I know someone who's like that. No. Yeah, it's real, but it's an excellent reference point to. It's an excellent window to what life in a typical Japanese office would be like.
That's cool.
That's cool to know.
Yeah,
that like makes the show even more valuable for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Like for me, it just connected me in so much. I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? It's like, oh my god, it's like, are they really? Oh my, it's like it's true. Like, are they really doing it? You know, it's like. It's so good. Agretzko's so good. Best Sanrio character ever.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's going back to like the drinking parties. It's like no one, like the food can be laid out all in front of you, but no one touches any of the food until the kanpai, until the cheers. Like that's one thing. Like every foreigner, almost every foreigner fails at in their first enkai. It's like, the food's up. They start eating, right? But no Japanese person is just moving. They're just waiting until someone makes like all right, you know, they say like a small speech. All right, kanpai, and then everyone says cheers, and then everyone starts taking in.
So, if you start eating, does anybody say, "Hey, stop eating.
It depends on if they know you can understand the Japanese or not. But I mean, if you're a foreigner, it's your first time in Japan, they might say like, "Oh wait, hold on, we gotta wait to become pie first," if they're nice enough. But if they expect you to know, they're not gonna say anything. They're just gonna be like, yeah.
Oh, this guy.
Oh my gosh.
Like they'll just pass silent, like the silent judgment thing. It's like also the you're in the club mentality. That's a huge thing here. It's like I said, if you don't go to the drinking party, they're gonna silently excuse you from the club.
Yeah,
you know, it's like that's a huge thing here. It's like in the US, it's like, hey, we're gonna go drinking. You want to come along? Nah, I got a game to play. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. All right, cool. You know, it's nothing, right?
Yeah.
And here it's like, yeah, if you don't come along, it's like, oh, you obviously don't want to be part of us. All right, see you later. You know?
It's like almost like offense is taken.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have like a legit sounding reason, like, nah, sorry, I have to do this. You know, I'm busy with this. I gotta go. Even if you gotta lie, I gotta go to my my grandmother's house, do some stuff. You know. Even though if you just don't feel like hanging out, it's like you still got to make up something.
Yeah.
Right.
As an introvert, that is just like that's a lot. That's a lot to have to do.
Yeah, like that's so like you get. I mean, after a while, you get creative with your stories, and you know which one you start to like. Oh, I already used this one. Let's use this story next. You know.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I think a lot of my. Culture shocks, if it just came with just how daily life in the workplace was like outside. I mean, I've been called out like, I mean, you're gonna meet racist people anywhere. It's like if I'm speaking English to another foreigner, there'll be like a random old Japanese who's like, "Hey, speak Japanese," or something. You know, we don't speak English here. You know, you get those in any country. I mean,
I mean, you get that in America with anyone. Well, really anyone speaking any other language, but especially Spanish, because you know.
I speak American, right?
Yeah. We don't speak Spanish here. We're American. You speak English.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, I've come across that situation more than a handful of times here. And you know what I do? It's like, I don't know. I get to a point. I just speak even louder English to. It's like, and like most of the time, since they don't really understand what I'm talking about, I'll just talk about rubbish. Like, yeah, you know, the train is really packed today, and look at the bags. Look at the bags up over here. You know, just
my gosh.
The car just to see this salary man just kind of like boiling up inside. It's like, you know, if you're gonna, you know, because there are people behind me. No, he didn't even say don't speak English. He'll say, hey, you guys are too loud. But then there's these group of youngsters behind me who are speaking just as loud, excited about something else, but he's not commenting about it. So
because they're speaking Japanese.
Yeah. So the meaning beneath his words is like, hey, I don't want you foreigners speaking English because it's English, you know. So you get that sometimes, but then I mean, like just because, you know, as an American who just really dislikes that kind of interaction, even back at home, it's like, nah, I ain't gonna let you get away with that. I'm just gonna be annoying you to death until I get it. You know? It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Oh gosh, I love spite so much. It's just so good.
And then my friend would just like, you know, my friends would just look at me and just be like, "Are we really doing this?" Like, yeah, but we're not being violent. We're just being annoying.
I mean, that's fair.
To one particular person who felt the need to say something.
Yeah. It's like, you know, like, yeah. I mean, it's just the joys of just, what's the word? It's just, I can't even remember the word. It's just, like when you take out your anger, but not in a very direct way. What's the word?
Passive aggressive.
Yes, thank you. Passive aggressive. I'm a very passive aggressive person when it comes to those kinds of situations.
That's fair.
I stand it.
Yeah. I guess. Did you have any others? Any other weird culture shock thingies?
I have 12 years worth of stories, but I think those are probably the more entertaining ones. You know.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
I guess so. Our last question then is, what has it been like to start a family in Japan? Because you said you and your wife have been together for quite a while, right? And
Hmm.
a little more than a year ago, you had a daughter. So
Hmm.
what has that been like?
Well, first of all, Japanese healthcare system when it comes to taking care of moms or expecting moms
Mhm.
is wonderful.
Mm.
Absolutely wonderful. They take
Yeah.
care of them. Like my wife after giving birth, my wife was in the hospital for about a week while her body recovered. They fed her some of the most like luxurious like bentos every not bentos but lunches and dinners every day. It's like, dude, it's like this is like hotel quality. It's like,
Huh.
it's like balanced foods, like so that she can get everything that she can recover as best as she can. It was amazing. They're kind of like they kind of care because you guys know about Japan's declining birth rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of steps to just make sure that if someone is giving birth, that it's going to happen, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna take care of him, right? So the kind of support that new or expecting families get is amazing. It's like obviously you get periodic visits to make sure that's expected to make sure everything's coming along well. But then after giving birth, it's like um, the mother can, like, my wife stayed at the hospital for about a week recovering. She covered just like perfectly fine. I think in the U.S., like whenever my sister gave birth, she was back home like 2 days later or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it does happen really quick here.
Yeah, but they take care of you. They like that's your home for about a week
Huh.
until you're ready enough. You're ready to go home. And then like what is it? The because of the also the low birth rate. What is it? The government subsidizes a lot of stuff when it comes to childcare. Like there's what is it? Oh, first of all, maternity leave. Like the mother can take about a year off work.
Wow.
Oh my
Like
gosh,
one
that's
year, 1 year off
awesome.
maternity leave. The government pays for about like 60% of your salary, 50-60% of your salary for 1 year, which isn't bad at
Wow.
all. And paternity leave is also a year, but depending on the person, because of societal pressures, not everyone takes it. Like
Yeah.
I took my paternity leave for about a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one is legally allowed, or rather legally entitled to up to a year. Um, and also, the government subsidizes preschool. So, like, well,
Oh.
there are like government subsidized preschools, like preschools that are like, and also kindergartens, no, not kindergartens, preschools that conform to like government standards, like what they want. But there's also private ones which may or may not. So those are kind of like a risk. But the thing is also there's a huge waiting lists for those government subsidized ones, but it's free.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to pass the application process. So they take care of you. You know, yeah, they do a good job at just taking care of new families, making sure everything's situated and stuff like that.
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's
so
definitely better than here.
it's like
Yeah.
what else is there? Uh, I mean, I think generally speaking, I think this comes with anyone who starts a family. It's like the first few months, you're not going to have much sleep.
Yeah.
That's just with anything, right? Like, but as far as what makes it different in Japan, it's like everything I described, um, and usually I think it's kind of a thing where whenever the mother gives birth, they go back to their parents' home and they recover there for a few months.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually in the countryside where the air is fresh. There's no Tokyo traffic. Everyone's really nice, and that's what we did. So
Yeah.
it was like really peaceful. It was really nice, in the countryside. So absolutely loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What else about Japan? Oh, also like the there's a lot of cool traditions that come with raising a child here. Like after the first 100 days, it's like there's like this special, not ritual, not event, but it's like you do it at home. It's like the first eating. Although the child's only like, a little over 3 months old, but they get to pretend that they're like having all these foods. So it's like the parent gets to like, there's like this whole meal set out in front of them. The parent like kind of pretends they play lunchtime with the baby, just like, oh, here you go, oh, here you go, here you go. It's like really cute. And there's a whole slew of those kinds of neat traditions that come along with like the first few months of the child's birth. So like right now, like my daughter right now, she's healthy, she's developing her personality, she eats as much as I do, so that's definitely coming out. So it's been an adventure. I'll say that. I just said it like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That sounds awesome, though. Yeah, that sounds really great, and like it's so nice that you have that support. Not just through the government, but also like with the family system that they have in place and with those traditions.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's really nice over here. Like, I think my experience, like if we were to have raised my daughter in the U.S., it would be a much different experience, I'd say. Like,
I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Probably more stressful. I mean, no matter what, there's going to be stressful things that come along with raising a kid. But
yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share with everyone, or is there anything that you would want to just say in general?
Let me think. I want to say in general. Well, I'd say once this COVID madness is done and over with, like all y'all should come to Japan. Like I was just, if you guys ever come to Japan, make sure to hit me up. And like I'm a stone's throw away from Tokyo. I'd be glad to take you guys around. Eric has been here once or twice, and I met up with him. So like it's like I just really like showing people around, like, and I live like far from Tokyo, so like if you guys want to see things that are off the beaten path, if you will, then
that's what we want.
Part of the reason we haven't been yet is because we wanted to be proficient enough that we could get around on our own and go to a bunch of different places that aren't metropolitan. Obviously, we want to go to Tokyo and Kyoto and Osaka and places like that, but we also want to go places where, like,
go to the countryside, basically.
where we kind of need to be able to speak a little bit more good. More good. You know what I mean?
But at the same time, you shouldn't let that hold yourself back, because it's like that's how you learn.
That's
like that's how you learn. It's like I remember there was one other story. There was one time where I was going to meet with a bunch of other jets, and I was taking the local train line, and it was nothing like the Tokyo train line. It's like one train an hour. It's like really inconvenient, right? And I had my headphones on. I was like, I knew my station was going to be, I was going to arrive at my station at like, let's just say 20 past, right? And I was looking at my clock. I was like, oh, it's 18. It should be the next station, right? So I got off, and it was the station before I was supposed to get off, right?
Oh no.
So, and then these countryside stations are like really spread apart. So I was like, I think I'm just going to follow the tracks, and see where it leads me, right? I'll see what happens, right? I had to ask a few locals which way to go, and my language level was it was 4 years of college good, but it wasn't like life in Japan for 12 years good yet, right? So like, but because I was just out there in the middle of nowhere, I had to use it, and that's how you build your confidence too. It's like, well, obviously when I said this was they understood what I meant, so that means something was right, or they didn't understand me, so what am I saying wrong? That's how you learn. That's how you learn.
We definitely, like, we have a local Japanese grocery store that we go to, and we'll try to speak Japanese there.
Good.
Yeah, like when we get the chance, we try to use it.
Good. Yeah. It's like just put yourself out there. That's the best way to learn a language. Like really just put yourself out there.
And I personally, I've never come across somebody who was like offended that we were
No.
bad because we're not
No.
good, you know. Like they're usually very welcoming. Like
Yeah.
like they're happy
'Cause
to
you-
try and help you.
Exactly. And like if you do that in Japan, it's like they're gonna appreciate that you're actually trying to learn the language. So
Yeah.
they're not gonna shun you away because like, oh, you can't speak the same level. They're gonna be like, oh, don't worry. Like I remember my first time arriving to Japan as a tourist, before I came as a jet, we were trying to find a hotel, and we asked this random guy, "Hey, we're trying to find this hotel. Do you keep pointing us to the right direction?" He walked 15 minutes just to guide us to the front door.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my
hotel.
gosh! What a nice
He walked
guy.
with us. Yeah, it's like, you know, you encounter that kind of helpfulness if you show yourself that, if you show that, you know, I'm trying to learn more about, you know, this area, your language. I'm trying my best.
Yeah.
They'll welcome that. They'll welcome that attitude.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess on that note, where can everybody find you?
You can find me. Everyone can find me on YouTube at Eiga-Man Ray. I also go by that same handle on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram. I also have a Facebook page, but it's not really that popping, so I might take it down. I don't know, but definitely Twitter and Instagram are my go-to platforms in addition to YouTube. Yeah, like I should be back on the content train probably early next month. Once I can kind of figure out like when's the best timing and like once like the movies start coming out, because I'm slowly starting to watch movies again in the movie theater. Like I just watched the Demon Slayer movie.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. You guys watch the Demon Slayer anime?
No.
We haven't.
Are you fans of shonen anime like Naruto, One Piece?
Probably not as big as a lot of our friends.
Yes, I would agree with that.
We definitely, there are certain shonen anime that
we're working through Naruto. Yeah.
Spoilers.
Okay.
No.
Like Demon Slayer right now is only one season, like 24, 26 episodes, but
Okay.
the movie was fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why it is now Japan's highest grossing theatrical release to date. Like it beat Spirited Away. Yeah,
Did it?
Spirited
Okay.
Away was number one for the longest time, but now it's the Demon Slayer movie.
Oh,
So-
wow.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't know that. I
Well,
didn't
we'll
know
have
that
to
it
get
had
on
been
that.
replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I honestly think half of it is contributed to the fact that there's no other movies playing in the theater because of COVID, but that's just my opinion.
That makes sense.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But later, like, when is it coming out? Man, I was so looking forward to the new Ava movie this month.
I was gonna
Oh,
say,
us
yeah.
too. Yes.
Wouldn't that have been crazy if that of all things became the highest, grossing, just because it was like one of two movies that was out in theaters.
Yeah, the movies right now are like, what else did I watch? I watched the new Pokemon movie, which was just crap. I watch new Pokemon movies every year because I love Pokemon, and they're usually not that good. But they've been releasing some decent movies recently, but all the good stuff is going to start coming out later this year. Like the Rurouni Kenshin movies are coming out in May and June. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But anyways, going back on topic. I'll be back on the content train probably beginning of February. So you guys will hear much more from me. And probably I'm going to be trying to start experimenting with new types of content. It's going to be hard trying to do it because I still have to balance daddy duties, but like it requires me to get out of the house a little bit more.
Okay.
But hopefully that comes out later this year. But yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah. Anybody who's watching this who isn't already, go subscribe and go follow and all that good stuff. The links will all be down in the description.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Thank you for joining us. This was so enlightening. I learned so much.
Thank you for reaching out. You know, like I said in the beginning, like I love your guys' content, and so when you guys asked me to join, you guys are like, yeah, I'd definitely love to.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Yeah,
Super
it was a
awesome.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah, if you guys wanna chat at any time, like if it's so long as this time frame is good for both of us, then
for sure.
Yeah,
great.
that sounds great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, and we'll let you go. I know you're probably not going to go to bed yet. It's
Why not? I still have some, maybe a few games to play, but
yeah.
That's fair.
Sounds good. Well, thank you again. Thank you for your time. That ended up taking longer than I expected, but I really appreciate you hanging out with us this long.
Like I said, I tend to ramble, so
it was great.
It's okay.
It was awesome.
It was great.
Yeah,
great.
very, very enlightening. So
all right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well,
all right. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
You.